afternoon, good evening, good morning. Thank you very much for joining. In this session, we'll be talking about something that is quite interesting that we have started to see in Europe, in US, and in particular in the Middle East. And this is coming at it from a rather interesting part of the financial markets, that's the family offices. Now, traditionally, of course, and we'll go deeper into that when I speak to my colleague over here, Christiane, family offices would have a fairly convoluted structure, fairly complex. They'll have a trust sitting in Jersey. They might have some kind of a holding company sitting in BVI. They'll have a whole bunch of operating companies. They will have a separate investment vehicle. Every time that a birth happens, a divorce happens, a death happens, the trusts have to be restructured. Raising capital is sometimes a challenge. It becomes difficult. But over the last 18 months or so, we have started to see a very interesting and strong trend that seems to be developing. Especially the families that are wanting to be more ambitious, they want to move faster, and they want their family structures to be more, let's just put it in this way, flexible and amenable. They are starting to come to us and saying, can we convert our family office structure to a fund structure or an asset management structure? So in this brief conversation with Christiane, it's going to be a fireside chat about why. Why is this happening? What are the various structures that are appropriate and are being considered? The third thing that we wanted to say is, what are the lessons learned? Some things work, some things don't work. What are the, let's say, do's and don'ts? And then we'll try and summarize and explain what are the benefits of having a fund structure. I mean, this doesn't apply to everybody. So those are the 3-4 things that we are going to be discussing. So first, I'm going to ask Christiane to introduce herself. And she's got a very long background in private banking, and she's been dealing with family offices now for many, many years. Christiane.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Bhaskar. So I'm Christiane El Habre. I'm the Regional Managing Director of Apex. I joined Apex 18 months ago. Previously, all my life, I've been in financial services, but on the other side of the table, dealing with investment banking, wealth management, specifically wealth management in the region, getting to know the families, their background, what they like to invest, what they don't want to invest, how they run the families. And historically, in the Middle East, families, like you have the patriarch, where they have, and normally he's a business owner, he has the mindset, he has the money, and he invests in businesses. 80% of their business is like a real estate investment, because all Arabs and, Middle Eastern investors, they like their portfolio to be 80% is tangible, right? Real estate, whether it's in their country or outside their country, in the US, in Europe, in different places. And the rest is like in the businesses that they have and other things. But now we're seeing second and third and fourth generation coming. So probably the second generation are interested in the business. The third generation, they're going into AI, technology, different kind of thinking, and it's growing, right? So the mentality has changed. First, they know now that they need some kind of corporate governance in terms of structure. One, for capital preservation. Second, for growth. Third, to open the door, the opportunity for the new generation to be able to invest in things that they like, or they're like trendy, where the patriarch doesn't understand anything about AI, for example. And the new generation, they want impact investing, AI, technology, and all of these things. Just an example, a small example. So what happened is, like, now it's a need. It's not like it's a must. It's not only a need, it's a must to have the right structure, first, to preserve the wealth. And normally the private banks, more or less, they were like responsible of doing it, to create trust. Somewhere different SPVs, they're sitting in the majlis, somewhere is investing in Africa. We invest the same way. without going back and how it's going to be reflected later on in terms of succession, in terms of investing in a different country or different something. A few things happened in the region lately that it was a wake-up call for all the family offices to come and say, how can I institutionalize this? And we at Apex, we've seen a good few examples in the last 18 months, as you said. The good things about Apex, me coming from like wealth management, we understand the family office kind of thinking. And we know that it is different than any other institution kind of fund. So we're not dealing here with a fund manager or an asset manager. We're dealing with a family mentality, different businesses, different things. One CIO or an accountant that's taking care of all the businesses, and very, very few that are really organized. And it's a learning process, how we take them. First, to understand their needs. Second, to educate them. How? Because there are like millions of ways to do it, right? It's not like only one way. And there is no family like the other. Like there is no investment like another one. So it needs a little bit of an education process. They need to be connected to the right lawyer in place, which like we have the ecosystem to connect them with the right lawyer to find the right structure that is feasible for them. Third, give them the option to have a holistic structure through a foundation, a trust, and then LPGP, ICC, PCC. We can go there like later on to see how they can structure. And then divide their investment the way that like they want to institutionalize it, if you want. So let's say the real estate investment will be set, the healthcare and education, for example, the public markets, the investment, more importantly, the co-investment as well, because they've been struggling lately to have a co-investment. It's an alien model to the Middle Eastern families, right? Like they don't want to bring money who they're not acquainted with, and they're not sure how it's going to affect the succession planning or something like that. So they come to Apex to find the right structure to have this co-investment and do not commingle with other investment that they have.
See, one of the things that Christiane mentioned is succession planning. Now, look, I mean, we're talking about families over here, and events happen. The second generation or the third generation says, give me my money, I'm heading off, I want to do something else. But untangling this entire convoluted and a complex structure that has built up over decades of a trust there and a holding company there and this and that, unwinding this entire thing just to have one person exit or whatever be the reason, it becomes very, very complicated. But one of the benefits of setting up a fund structure is that the ownership of each family member is very clearly defined. And funds have been dealing with exits of core investors quite easily. It might be closed-ended, it could be open-ended, but the processes for taking out one investor and selling it in the secondaries market or to somebody else is very well established. So what happens is that the succession planning pain is much easier. If you're going to do it in that way, you know what? It will take skin with you. But if you do it out of a fund structure, it becomes much easier. What do you think, Christiane?
Well, I think in the UAE in particular, GIFC and ADGM have created the ecosystem for this to happen for families. So they've created the family office business. They created plugged into the whole ecosystem, into asset managers, into fund managers, into service provider, and into lawyers as well, right? And into the tribunal system as well. So we go hand in hand. So it has to be us, the lawyers, and the family and their history and what they want to do and how they want to structure it. We sit with the lawyers and we start going hand in hand. It's what is best for you? Foundation, trust, yes, no, pros, cons. Second, is it an LPGP structure? You want your investors right on the top and then we divide it? Or you want special ICC, PCC structure? You want co-investment or you want to keep it for the family? You want one portfolio to stay with your kids only? not with the cousins or something. So like we can work it out. It has to be like a mapping process. And in Apex, we have the right ecosystem to do so. Not only that, it's like we help them institutionalize it, and there is no need for them to really like have the full structure even. They can use our structure, Fundrock structure, for us to be able to help them manage the infrastructure, manage the fund itself, help them to invest, co-invest, capital calls, onboarding, remove all the hassle that they have if they want to create it themselves into like a proper structure. So they keep what they have, they keep the resources what they have, the minimum resources that they have, someone responsible for their family offices, but we'll remove the hassle. So we'll create the structure, we'll walk through them like what they want, what they don't want. Third, we'll offer them the platform to host it for them. And this is like something that no one can do, right? Like at the moment. So to understand the platform and to tell them what to do, how to invest, where to invest. And then the cross-border kind of things, which Apex can do, because most of the families, let's face it, they have investment in the US, investment in Europe, investment probably in India. Who else can give the platform with different scalability and cross-border kind of tax kind of flexibility to have it in one platform?
Let's pick up on one of the points that we had discussed, that creating a fund structure makes it easier for you to raise capital. Now, if I look at the Middle Eastern families, traditionally the way that they used to grow their business was primarily bank finance. But it's getting challenging. Quite a lot of the families here are PEPs, and the capacity to lend to perhaps an overlent sector like, for example, real estate is challenging. And lastly, the magnitude of lending that perhaps would be available is starting to become challenging. So especially if you're talking about, for example, the commonly held sectors where family offices have been working, property funds, on REITs, on healthcare. Now they have started to get into infrastructure like data centers, e-commerce, logistics. These sectors, they need large checks. So they might be fairly comfortable in running a project, let's say a real estate project of 100 million, but if they wanted to bid for a port, or if they wanted to actually look at creating warehouses or data centers, we are starting to look at projects that will quite easily top $1 billion, if not more. So what happens is that once you create a fund structure and the benefits that we have got from Apex Invest, which will allow them to actually raise capital at a very competitive price, frequently much faster than what a bank would give, and private capital operates at different risk structures. Now, both of us have been bankers before, and we used to dread writing credit memos and explaining why this risk would be high and collateral would be difficult. But when it is a fund, it becomes considerably easier. There is a very long track record of institutional investing in the fund. The assets are very clear. The chain of ownership is very clear. English common law in both the jurisdictions, for example, DIFC and ADGM. So raising capital in many ways, unless you own a bank, becomes very attractive and easy for families. What do you think, Christiane?
Well, to add to what you said, there are so many families that have the same mindset or different complementing kind of things. Let's take it like someone has the hospitals and the other family has the clinics, and they want to join it together and raise more funds to create a conglomerate with the right corporate governance. Because if you want to do it yourself, it's becomes so complicated with the M&As, with the thing, and it's like, it gets so complicated. But if you do it through a fund, you get in and you can get out. The exit is much, much, much easier than going into private equity on an M&A. Plus, of course, there are a lot of families that they have, we've seen a lot of M&As lately, like the last 5 years in the market, where the families, they have cash now, and they want to invest it somewhere, and they want the right opportunities. And some families have the right opportunity for them. And because previously it's so hard to commingle kind of the money, if you have the right structure, you can write them the check and then bigger, more scalable projects, whether it's in healthcare, whether it's in AI, whether like irrespective on what sector, what's hot right now, even real estate right now, or REIT or whatever.
So what we talked about up till now, what are the benefits? And it's become very clear that for families, setting up a fund structure would help you in visibility, in succession planning, capital raise. So far, so good. But based upon Christiane and my experience over the last 18 months or so, there are certain lessons learned that we had. And we will unpack 2 or 3 of them, and we'll also talk about what to do. One of the things that we have seen, or actually 2 major things that we have seen, is that families rarely have the experience of dealing with regulated entities. Regulated entities mean that you need to be compliant, there need to be governance, there needs to be processes. You can't just take a decision and you're off. So the entire panoply of managing a regulated entity is sometimes new for family offices. The second thing, which at least what I have experienced, is when you set up a fund, you have to write out what is the fund going to do. And unlike the family offices and their investment philosophy, once you have written down a PPM, that is what you have to stick with over the next 6-7 years. It's almost like, for families, you are taking away their dancing shoes. Previously, they would be having an ability to actually change their investment decisions like this. But once it's a fund structure, you have external investors, that is taken away. But more importantly, if you have to draft out what exactly the fund will do and invest and what is the returns going to be, there is quite a lot of thinking that needs to be done. Something that perhaps family offices, some of them have got strategy people and they can draw this up, but it's not that common. So those are the 2 things that that I would say are lessons learned that families should be cognizant on. And Christiane is planning to do something around that. I mean, we have invited some of one of our partners, law firms, to come and brief our families on just make sure you do this and that, and you have a regulated entity, so on and so forth. But I'm going to ask Christiane about more on the strategy side, because the family office strategy is much more volatile, much more individualistic, and it does keep on changing. And that migration from that structure to a PPM-driven legal document that is fairly fixed for the next 7 years, how does that work, Christiane?
The thing is, like, there is an education process that should happen, but the need in the market is dictating that the family office should look into these options and have an open mind to do things the right way. Of course, the decision making is much slower than normal asset managers or fund managers. Even for the lawyers now, they are getting used to, like, we're not dealing with an asset manager, we're dealing with a family office. We need to keep the prospectus a little bit loose, a little bit wide in terms of investment or something, depending on their needs. So we're quite flexible. And there is no one size fits all. So every family has its own requirement. And we want to make sure we have a couple of lawyers that we're working with. First, from an education perspective. Second, from how to be lenient enough to be able to navigate all of this and make sure that to tell that this family offices, you're not losing control. You're just organizing things in a way that will make it better in the future. As simple as that. It's like, if you want to change anyways the prospectus, like, you can change it, right? It needs certain process and procedures, but ultimately you can do it, right? It's not the end of the world. But it pushes the family to think, like, from now, I have to think 7 years, 10 years ahead, 15 years ahead. And I need to think about my exit plan. my succession plan, what I'm gonna do. So these kind of trigger and questions are very hard to navigate, especially when we're doing the structure. And you need really like good skills and people that have the stamina to sit and understand and then understand the concerns of the family, right? And deal with it accordingly. Because if you go to an asset manager and you say like, this is the prospectus, they're used to do it, like this is the investment strategy, and you have investors coming in, reading it, international investors, then everything is fine. But with the family, it's totally different. Will it remain with the family? Will we open it to someone else? Will they be able to see our other investments? And you will be faced with basic questions, right? Like something that you don't face with asset management normally. So the roundtables that we are hosting, and we are thinking of bringing like big family offices that they have done it before to give a case study for other family offices, to do roundtables. We have a team that they can answer all the questions. And then most importantly, we have case studies now up and running with families that they've done it. Like if I sit with a family, myself or you, we sit and we tell them that we've done it. It's there. Other families are doing it. So we have a track record and it's important.
I'll come back to that to try and close this. One of the things that we learned was that family offices simply don't have the capacity to manage regulated entities if you wanted to go in for the full-blown setup. So to be blunt, our recommendation is don't even try, because you will be boiling the ocean and trying to hit too many things at the same time. First, get onto the fund platform. They will be able to help. Christiane's team will be able to help you with the capital raise, with the family office structures, with the setup of the corporate vehicles, to take care of all the finances, the compliances, the reporting, the regulatory reporting, the taxes, payroll, everything. What you focus on is the strategy. You start working with us on capital raise, and you know how to do the investment management piece. We can even provide you with help in case you wanted investment advisory. But that is a good way and a simple, quick, cheap, fast way to get into the regulated structure. Get experience, get 6 months, 12 months, 24 months, however long you take to become comfortable. And then if you want, you move away your platform into a full-blown asset management company, and then you run it, if that's what you want. If not, keep on adding funds. But let me just ask one thing, because this is something that both of us had to learn. When a fund or an asset manager, asset management company comes to us, the questions that we ask are very straightforward. It's so straightforward that we have what we call as an NBQ, New Business Questionnaire. Here's a list of questions. Everybody knows the questions. They understand the language. They just have to fill it out. Once they fill it out, and then Christiane's team will go back to them literally in a day or two. Here's the cost, here's the time, here's the price. With family offices, unfortunately not. Because, as Christiane said, every family office is different. And we have to do two things simultaneously. One is to educate them. At the same time, we have to keep on giving them various options. Remember, this is a regulated entity. Once you have set it up, changing it, it's going to take time, money, and energy. So, and each of them have got their pros, each of them have their cons. So poor old Christiane has to spend, I would say, weeks with the family office and their advisors and their lawyers to keep on educating them as to what are the best options. And there are lots of options. Somebody might say, I want to have daily valuations. Fine, that's something that you were perhaps doing as a family office. We can do it, but nobody does it for a fund. I mean, you can do it if you want, but 3 months is fine. This is just one example. The ability of having liquidity, open-ended, closed-ended, all those things have to be discussed. So, as I said, Christiane has to spend weeks, if not months, making sure that everybody is very comfortable with the structure, the ongoing operations, and the management of the new structure. Look, it is in our interest. we don't want a party that is going to create mistakes. At the end of the day, we are legally liable and regulatory responsible. It is our fiduciary responsibility to make sure that the fund is managing well. So let me ask some of the a fairly detailed question from Christiane. These initial discussions, which are obviously new that you wouldn't normally do with an asset management, what is the lessons learned for family offices?
Well, now the team is like well equipped to deal with this kind of things. I remember the first time we were dealing with a family and coming this, and then you never send an NBQ to a family office. Every time they used to send it, it was like, what is this? We're not getting any answer whatsoever. Not because they don't want to answer, but they are lost. What is this? Like, what's capital calls? What's like shareholders? What's like a number of investors? What like the size and all of this? They're really. So now we have a system. Okay. First, it's very important to have the lawyers on our side, right? To understand what kind of documentation they have, what kind of documentation we need to ask. We understand with the family, we sit there like in details, like sometimes the session is like 3-4 hours to understand what's their vision, what they want to do. Or sometimes they don't know what to do, right? We need to walk through like step by step through the process and give them ideas and options, as you said, like you can do this, you can do that, might be good for you. They go back, they think about it, they come back again, they say, what is like this option? It has to be hands in hands with the lawyers to make sure that it is the right structure for them. And of course, it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of energy, but the team now is really like equipped to be able, they know what to do, they know how the things flow, they know how to start talking, they know that I don't need to send an NBQ, I will fill it while I'm talking to them. And I'm telling them that this questionnaire is only like to give you a skeleton, at least at the beginning. And then from this skeleton, so many things change, right? We start with the ICC, it moves to PCC, or it moves to GPLP, or it moves to a foundation. But it takes a little bit of time. But ultimately, like with the experience that we had, is like, we know now what the drill, we know what to do. Listen, just listen to them. Listen what do they have? Listen what they want to do. Listen, like we really want to listen. We don't want to do anything. Once we understand the structure, we talk to the lawyers, and then we propose something that is feasible for them.
So, to summarize, the benefits of setting up a fund management entity are clear. But to set it up and move your organization, family office organization, to a regulated entity will take time. We are here to help, and it will take time. So just reach out to us. We love to talk, and it is in our interest to make sure that you are successful. So sit down, we have a chat, we have a nice meal. We will be partners together for many, many years. Thank you very much for listening, and looking forward to hearing from you.